The heavens split with a deafening roar over ancient Hellas. This marks the birth of a primeval, indescribable terror that forever shook the entire world. The great Olympians flee in blind panic to the scorching sands of Egypt. Cowardly, they assume pathetic animal forms for their salvation. The ancient earth groans agonizingly under the monstrous weight of this colossal being. Its immense, impenetrable shadow instantly and mercilessly eclipses the sun. His name is Typhon. He is the father of all monsters, the living embodiment of absolute primeval chaos, threatening to tear apart the delicate fabric of creation forever. Chapter 1. We open ancient grimoires and secret manuscripts to thoroughly examine the true form and unimaginable power of this primordial evil. The ancient poet Hesiod, in his grim Theogony, describes Typhon as the child of bottomless Tartarus and Gaia, born of pure, uncontrolled cosmic wrath. In the pages of ancient folios, this creature appears before us not merely as another wild beast. Typhon is a living, pulsating cosmic cataclysm woven from primordial darkness itself. He emerged from those grim depths where neither time nor ordered light yet existed. Exactly 100 terrifying dragon heads sprout from his colossal, strained shoulders. These gigantic necks easily pierce heavy storm clouds, touching the cold stars. The ancient Greeks believed their scales shimmered with a dead gleam, reflecting the light of long-extinguished, cursed celestial bodies in the night. In each of these 100 gaping maws, forked black tongues continuously flicker. They exude a thick, deadly venom of the primordial abyss, drops of which hissingly corrode the very fabric of reality. Albertus Magnus's secret treatise describes this toxin as the pure quintessence of absolute decay. Typhon's countless eyes blaze fiercely with the crimson, unquenchable fire of the underworld. Occultists claim that a mere fleeting glance from these burning orbs can instantly incinerate all human hope, leaving in the soul only the cold, sticky ash of primeval despair, from which there is no salvation. When he opens his countless maws, his voices merge into a horrifying cacophony, incomprehensible to the mind. This sound blends the dull roar of a furious bull, the bloodthirsty snarl of a cave lion, and the blood-curdling hiss of tens of thousands of venomous snakes, intertwined into a single pulsating mass. But at times, this monster emits entirely different, vibrating sounds, whose hidden meaning is understood only by the most ancient gods. Even immortal divine blood chills from these otherworldly frequencies, and ancient manuscripts state that this whisper can crack the strongest marble altars. Instead of conventional legs, this chthonic creature has colossal, hard-scaled vipers coiling. With their powerful rings, they mercilessly pierce the earth's crust as if it were soft clay, delving deep into the core to draw dark energy from the very seething, incandescent heart of our doomed planet. The span of his gigantic, leathery wings is so monstrous that a single beat can plunge the light of an entire star constellation into darkness. Chroniclers claim that the shadow cast by these wings carries an unnatural, penetrating cold, freezing the very soul of anyone who dares to look up. Ancient manuscripts, yellowed with age, state that the very air around his scorching body instantly transforms into suffocating black ash. The atmosphere literally burns away, creating a deadly vacuum around Typhon, in which no known form of biological life can exist. Medieval alchemical treatises, hidden in the secret chambers of old monasteries, name Typhon as the absolute, perfect embodiment of uncontrolled, all-consuming wild fire. For mystics, he became a symbol of that destructive flame which devours matter, leaving nothing but dead and cold slag in its wake. His heavy, hoarse breath alone gives birth to colossal, fiery hurricanes, capable of erasing entire flourishing civilizations from the face of the earth in a matter of hours. These plasma vortices, according to ancient texts, melt granite rocks and evaporate deep lakes, leaving behind only a scorched, lifeless desert. Typhon knows no physical fatigue, for his dark, primeval rage is continuously fed by the very decaying fabric of our cosmos. The more chaos, death, and pain he sows around him, the stronger, more massive, and more invulnerable his terrifying, multi-headed chthonic body becomes. Driven by the instincts of darkness, he becomes the consort of Echidna, a terrifying half-maiden, half-serpent, eternally lurking in damp, dark caves beneath the earth. Their unnatural union was sealed in the gloom of the underworld, far from the cleansing sunlight, where humanity's most dreadful nightmares are born. It was from their cursed, dark union that the most nightmarish, bloodthirsty creatures of the ancient sacred bestiary were born. This venomous seed spawned a legion of monsters whose sole purpose is to torment fragile humanity and eternally test the strength of the gods' established order of the entire universe. Cerberus, the three-headed guardian of the gates of gloomy Hades, inherited from his colossal father an indomitable, all-consuming rage and a seething flame. In his black blood flows the same primordial hatred that makes dead souls tremble at the mere sound of his blood-curdling guttural roar. The monstrous Lernaean Hydra fully received from Typhon its corrosive, lethally venomous blood and a terrifying, inexplicable ability for instant regeneration. Each severed head only multiplied its malice, reflecting the endless, unkillable nature of the primeval chaos embedded in its genes. The invulnerable Nemean lion, the fire-breathing chimera, and the merciless sphinx, all these are but a small, visible part of his truly deadly legacy. These gruesome abominations spread across the earth like living fragments of a single, inexpressible horror, continuing to bring ruin to the human race. Ancient occult grimoires strictly warn, Typhon is by no means a mindless beast. He possesses an incredibly cold, ruthless intellect, far surpassing any human comprehension. His mind is a black abyss where for centuries the most complex, destructive plans for the annihilation of all existence have been conceived. His true goal is by no means the simple, senseless destruction of cities. Typhon craves the complete, absolute overthrow of the divine cosmic order. He seeks to tear apart the very fabric of creation, to return the universe to its primordial dark nothingness, where only eternal, deafening void reigns. In secret texts, yellowed with age, special geometric symbols are mentioned. These sacred signs can only briefly deter his gruesome offspring, but before the father of monsters himself, any magic known to humans proves to be completely devoid of its protective power. The famous seal from the legendary Lesser Key of Solomon contains deeply hidden geometric references to restraining this serpentine fury. Every line is meticulously calibrated to securely lock away chthonic energies, though even it does not offer a 100% guarantee of salvation from destruction. Secret manuscripts state that Typhon's true form instantly drives mad any mortal who dares to gaze upon it. The human brain is simply incapable of comprehending this multidimensional black darkness, and thus reason forever fades, burning away in the abyss of absolute madness. Ancient Egyptian priests used special, enchanted protective amulets made of gleaming black obsidian to ward off his blazing gaze. They believed that only this dark, volcanic stone could absorb even a drop of the primeval terror emanating from the monster's eyes. Black hellebore and acrid burnt sulfur were used in the most secret nocturnal rituals of purification from his cursed defilement. Priests burned these gifts of the earth so that the thick smoke would create an impenetrable veil, securely hiding their fragile souls from the eye of darkness. The ancient Greeks sincerely, to the point of trembling, believed that sudden, devastating storms at sea were merely a distant echo of his heavy breathing. Every gust of hurricane wind carried a particle of that very primordial rage, ready to engulf ships at any moment. His mystical gravitational force is so colossal that even time itself is irreversibly distorted in his presence. Near this monster, seconds stretch into endless, agonizing hours, forcing the doomed victim to fully experience every moment of impending, inevitable, and cruel death. Decayed magical papyri of Egypt still carefully preserve incredibly complex, multi-stage spells for protection against his fiery servants. These ancient formulas were uttered exclusively in whispers, so as not to accidentally attract the attention of the one whose name is forbidden to be spoken aloud. Every dark scale on his countless serpentine bodies is described by chroniclers as a material significantly stronger than any celestial metal. No blade forged from earthly steel is capable of leaving even the tiniest scratch on this mystical, impenetrable armor. Typhon's thick, black drops of blood, hissing as they fall upon fertile soil, instantly give rise to dead, poisonous wastelands. Where this contaminated fluid spilled, no green sprout will ever grow again, leaving behind only a scorched, lifeless desert. This giant is capable of absolute command over incandescent magma flows, summoning them from the deepest, most hidden recesses of the earth. At his single silent call, the earth's crust splits open, spewing forth seething rivers of liquid fire, burning everything living in their path. In the famous mystical treatise of Albertus Magnus, a gruesome, nameless storm demon is mentioned, precisely mirroring Typhon's features. This dark text warns that such a creature does not merely control the weather, but appears as a living, sentient embodiment of the most ruthless, all-consuming deadly hurricane. Ancient chroniclers assert with a shudder that not even the strongest shield forged by gods could withstand the weight of his claws. Such monstrous power is hidden within them that a single swipe can easily tear apart not only armor, but reality itself. The invisible, oppressive aura of this monster exudes such a dense, primeval fear that it instantly paralyzes the will of even powerful, immortal beings. In its presence, the greatest heroes of antiquity fell to their knees, dropping their weapons and choking on tears of absolute, hopeless despair. Even almighty Zeus, the great lord of the heavens, trembled in horror before the unimaginable might of this giant. The realization that a power capable of so easily destroying all life on Olympus lurked in the dark abyss was forever imprinted in his immortal, divine memory. Closed mystical orders of the East and West for centuries guarded the true, unpronounceable name of Typhon in the strictest secrecy. In ancient scrolls, it is encrypted with complex symbols. For the adepts knew, it is not merely a word, but an acoustic key to the black abyss, concealing absolute evil. Uttering this forbidden name aloud, according to the grim beliefs of ancient priests, could instantly summon a destructive earthquake. Magical papyri of Egypt strictly warn, even a casual whisper can awaken vibrations that will shake the solid ground and crack age-old basalt slabs. Typhon remains a living, pulsating reminder of how fragile and vulnerable our ordered cosmos is. All illusion of safety pales before this chthonic deity, whose sole purpose is to return the flourishing world to the embrace of cold, dead, and formless void. Concluding the first chapter of our investigation, we are left alone with the chilling realization of his boundless, terrifying power. We have gazed into the eyes of primordial chaos, and now we must discover where exactly this colossal monster left its indelible marks. Chapter 2 unceremoniously transports us from dusty libraries to the real search for material traces and forgotten chronicles of the monster's habitation. We will follow the bloody route of ancient battles to find those cursed lands where the soil still remembers the weight of serpentine coils. The epic battle between almighty Zeus and furious Typhon unfolded on the steep, rocky slopes of Mount Cassius in ancient Syria. It was there, amidst storm clouds, that absolute order and primeval chaos clashed in a deadly struggle, whose collision forever altered the geological face of our world. Ancient chroniclers describe with reverent horror how the heavens themselves burned with crimson flame and the deep oceans boiled from their colossal collision. The air turned into suffocating ash, and molten rocks flowed into the valleys like tears of the earth itself, mourning its inevitable demise. At the climax, Typhon coiled his gigantic, death-grip serpentine rings around the vanquished thunderer, mercilessly draining his last strength. The monster's scales, stronger than any metal, dug into divine flesh, while a deafening, triumphant roar of victory erupted from the creature's maws. This ancient horror committed the unthinkable. With his claws, he tore the divine sinews from the hands and feet of the vanquished supreme god. Apollodorus, in his Bibliotheca Mythologica, describes in detail this gruesome act of desecration, when the lord of Olympus himself became a helpless victim, bleeding golden ichor. Mutilated, deprived of all ability to move, and utterly helpless, Zeus was mercilessly cast into the darkness of the damp Coretian cave in Cilicia. There, in absolute darkness, the greatest of gods experienced true despair, while outside, the world slowly plunged into primeval, untamed chaos. Local legends claim that this cursed cave still emits a strange, terrifying low-frequency hum that chills the blood. Those who dare approach its gaping maw swear they hear heavy breathing, as if the very stones still retain the memory of the imprisoned god. The terrible demoness Delphine, half-maiden, half-scaled serpent, was appointed to guard the hidden sinews of the Lord of Olympus. Concealed within a bearskin, these divine threads became Typhon's main trophy, ensuring that the dethroned king of the heavens would never again raise his deadly weapon. But cunning Hermes and the goat-footed Aegipan secretly infiltrated the gloomy cave to return the stolen power to their lord. Evading the vigilance of the serpentine guardian, they meticulously reinserted the sinews into Zeus's tormented body, awakening within him a spark of his former, indomitable divine wrath. Having regained his former might, Zeus soared on his winged chariot and unleashed an unending rain of dazzling adamantine lightning upon Typhon. The heavens split anew with thunder as the enraged thunderer began to press the colossal monster, incinerating its serpentine heads with harsh, all-consuming electrical fire. The merciless pursuit of the severely wounded monster left deep, unhealing geological scars on the face of the ancient world. Each drop of its venomous blood, falling to the earth, scorched forests and melted rocks, creating lifeless wastelands, casting its grim curse upon entire regions of the ancient oikumene. In Thrace, when Typhon hurled entire mountains at the gods, Zeus's lightning bolts cast them back, and Mount Haemus was thickly stained with the monster's dark blood. This event forever gave its name to an entire mountain range, for the word Haemus itself, in ancient Greek, means spilled blood. Modern unorthodox researchers seek the traces of his gigantic, desperately clinging claws directly on the massive fractures of tectonic plates. They believe that the colossal gorges and depressions of the Mediterranean are not merely a trick of nature, but a stone-etched testament to the agony of retreating primeval evil. Yellowed old maps by Claudius Ptolemy and treatises by Arab geographers mark strange zones of anomalous seismic activity in these places. In these cursed coordinates, compasses behave unpredictably, and suffocating sulfurous gases periodically erupt from deep fissures, reminiscent of the monster's breath. These unstable zones coincide with terrifying precision, down to kilometers, with the mythological escape route of the wounded giant. Occultists are convinced the Earth still cannot heal from the horrifying, space-distorting energy that the cosmic serpent, falling from the heavens, wove into the soil. The final crushing fall of the exhausted father of monsters occurred on the picturesque shores of the island of Sicily. Weakened, yet still burning with indomitable hatred, Typhon crashed onto the fertile earth, preparing for his last battle, which would forever link his dark fate with the depths of this island. Zeus, gathering the last remnants of divine strength, unleashed the colossal mass of Mount Etna upon his vanquished foe. Heavy basalt boulders cruelly pressed the primeval chaos to the earth, sealing the 100-headed monster in a dark prison. It seemed that the great battle was finally over, and the fragile world was saved. But death holds no sway over that ancient being, born long before the dawn of time itself. The colossal serpent did not perish under the crushing blow. Its immortal flesh, crafted from primordial darkness, merely plunged into a forced, incredibly heavy slumber. Typhon found himself buried alive within the boiling, magma-filled depths of the Sicilian volcano. There, in utter darkness, where stone itself melts, he is condemned to writhe eternally in unbearable pain, his blazing blood forever mingled with the molten core of our planet. Every furious eruption of Etna has, for ages, been considered the monster's desperate attempt to cast off its heavy stone shackles. When the earth begins to tremble terrifyingly, it is Typhon thrashing in agony, trying to spread his scorched wings and once again unleash his incinerating wrath upon the hated divine order. The ancient Syracusans, keenly aware of the looming threat, regularly offered bloody sacrifices to somewhat appease the unceasing wrath of the subterranean prisoner. Priests cast black bulls into the gaping volcanic fissures, hoping their smoking flesh would sate the primeval hunger of the colossal serpent imprisoned in darkness. In their miraculously preserved chronicles, seething rivers of liquid fire flowing down the slopes are described with a shudder. Frightened eyewitnesses swore that colossal, serpentine silhouettes distinctly flickered within these dazzling magma flows, as if Typhon's own tentacles reached out towards their defenseless, doomed settlements. Modern researchers have astonishingly discovered that Etna's thick volcanic ash conceals microscopic particles of a dark mineral entirely unknown to science. Its crystalline lattice is so anomalous that it violates the laws of physics, as if this material was born far beyond our familiar world. Alchemists of the grim Middle Ages, studying the strange properties of the rock, reverently called this burning black ash tears of Tartarus. They believed that each particle contained a fragment of primordial rage and used it to create the darkest and most dangerous elixirs, capable of destroying matter itself. In the remote vicinity of the erupting volcano, gruesome molten stones are still found, bearing the distinct imprint of gigantic serpent scales. These basalt pieces are so heavy and unnaturally cold that they burn the hands, recalling the chilling horror slumbering deep beneath our feet. Strict local legends, passed down through generations, categorically forbid uttering Typhon's true name during a blood moon. It is believed that on these mystical nights, the boundaries between worlds thin, and the ancient monster might hear the call, responding with a destructive, deadly earthquake. Forgotten chthonic cults of Sicily for centuries performed their grim, secret rituals in deep, sulfur-shrouded caves directly beneath Etna. Adepts of these closed orders descended into the very heart of the mountain to touch the pulsating dark energy emanating from the ancient deity imprisoned there. They firmly believed that Typhon's hoarse, maddening whisper could be distinctly heard through the deep, smoking fissures in the basalt. This otherworldly sound, like the grinding of 1,000 stones, penetrated directly into the mind, whispering gruesome secrets that no mortal should ever know. In the early 20th century, archaeologists found strange stone subterranean altars in those caves, lavishly adorned with hypnotic spiral patterns. These lines, carved into the hard rock, were filled with congealed blood and unknown black resins, whose acrid scent still lingers in the air. Occult researchers confirmed that these terrifying spirals symbolize the endless, tightly intertwined coils of the imprisoned god's colossal serpentine body. Gazing at these ancient frescoes, one begins to feel an inexplicable dizziness, as if invisible rings of chaos are slowly closing around one's own utterly defenseless neck. In the most strictly sealed manuscripts of the Vatican, classified inquisitorial reports still exist concerning utterly inexplicable glows above the volcano's crater. The Holy Fathers recorded with horror how, on the darkest nights, columns of pulsating light bearing no resemblance to magma erupted from the Earth's depths. Shocked eyewitnesses from those years described in detail gruesome crimson lightning bolts striking directly from Etna's incandescent maw into the absolutely clear night sky. These electrical discharges writhed like living serpents, shattering the silence with a deafening crack that burst windows in distant Sicilian monasteries. This terrifying atmospheric phenomenon strikingly resembles the most ancient antique descriptions of Typhon's primordial wrath. Grimoires state that this is what the breath of the storm looks like when the father of monsters attempts to tear through the fabric of reality, sending his fiery curses directly into the face of hated stars and sleeping gods. All these cursed, scorched lands around the volcano are literally saturated with the incredibly heavy energy of primeval fear. Local residents try not to look towards the summit unnecessarily, for the mere presence near this mountain evokes an unreasoning, blood-chilling anxiety and gruesome nightmares. Even wild animals, guided by an unerring instinct for self-preservation, always avoid certain slopes of the mountain long before an eruption begins. Birds fall silent, and dogs whimper plaintively, sensing something colossal, malevolent, and utterly alien to our familiar, fragile, ordered world stirring deep beneath the earth. Ancient occult maps, hidden in dusty archives, point to an intricate network of hidden underground tunnels leading from Etna to the very burning core of the earth. It is there, in a chasm unreachable by mortals, that the black heart of the myth beats, awaiting its inevitable hour for a triumphant return. According to the forbidden traditions of Rosicrucians and Hermetic orders, it is in this blazing abyss that the bound yet still living body of the father of all monsters rests. Serpentine coils are inextricably woven into basalt pillars, and his colossal mass pulsates in rhythm with subterranean tremors. The anomalous, suffocating heat constantly emanating from beneath the cracked earth is not magma at all, but the scorching heat of his unquenchable fiery breath. Every wisp of sulfurous gas carries a particle of the primordial curse, slowly but surely poisoning all life around the Sicilian crater. Typhon's terrifying traces are forever and indelibly imprinted not only on the geological, but also on the mystical history of our planet. Torn tectonic plates and scorched wastelands serve as silent witnesses to that cosmic catastrophe when primeval chaos nearly consumed all creation. Concluding this chapter of our grim investigation, we leave the smoking slopes of Etna to turn to the dusty manuscripts of other civilizations. For such a grandiose, all-consuming horror could not vanish without a trace. Its black shadow must inevitably have been reflected in the sacred texts of other peoples. Chapter 3. Comparative Analysis. We open the ancient pages of human memory, revealing the terrifying echo of Typhon in ancient cultures. Wherever priests offered prayers to the gods, there lurked a soul-chilling fear of the multi-headed serpent, whose presence threatened to erase the very fabric of existence. The myth of a grandiose cosmic serpent slaying permeates absolutely all great civilizations of the past with a blood-red thread. From the banks of the Nile to the valleys of Mesopotamia, ancient chroniclers, with mystical awe, recorded legends of a monstrous reptilian giant risen against divine order and the light of distant stars. When the great Olympians fled in panic to the scorching sands of Egypt, they, in sacred horror, instantly identified Typhon with the local god Set. Egyptian priests perfectly understood the nature of this dark entity, performing secret nocturnal rituals to contain its furious wrath. Set, the ruthless lord of dead deserts and sandstorms, also embodied destructive, utterly untamed chaos. His cult was steeped in the blood of sacrifices, and ancient papyri describe his power as an all-consuming flame, capable of incinerating all life in its deadly path. But even more, ancient Typhon resembles the colossal serpent Apep, the eternal sworn enemy of the sun god Ra. In the sacred Egyptian Book of the Dead, this colossal serpent is described as the embodiment of primordial darkness, whose sole desire is to forever extinguish the divine light. Every night, the colossal Apep attempts to swallow the sun in the grim, boiling waters of the Duat underworld. The monster's fearsome hiss shakes the banks of the subterranean river, while Ra and his retinue fight to the death to grant humanity another dawn over the earth. Turning to the clay tablets of Mesopotamia, we find the ancient Akkadian epic, Enuma Elish, and the terrifying primordial mother of all monsters named Tiamat. This primeval dragon of the salty ocean harbored the same indomitable, destructive rage as the Greek lord of chaos. Enraged Tiamat spawned an entire army of nightmarish monsters, scorpion men, horned serpents, and fierce storm demons, to destroy the younger gods. Her offspring brought death and madness, precisely mirroring the terrifying brood that Typhon produced with Echidna. The coincidence of the smallest details is astounding. We see hundreds of monsters born in darkness, a furious rebellion against ordered cosmos, and a grandiose battle that splits the heavens. These ancient texts are not metaphors, but a terrifyingly accurate chronicle of a real encounter with incomprehensible cosmic evil. The Babylonian god Marduk, strikingly similar to Zeus, uses a net, magical squall winds, and striking lightning to defeat primeval chaos. He tears Tiamat's body in two, creating the firmament and the earth from her dead flesh, forever sealing the dark forces of creation. In Slavic mythology, this archetype of primordial horror took flesh in the terrifying image of Zmey Gorynych. Forgotten pagan Volks described him as a colossal, multi-headed demon whose appearance was accompanied by a blackened sky, hurricane winds, and the smell of burning sulfur, poisoning everything around. The chthonic Chudo-Yudo from the darkest old Russian legends invariably dwells by the flaming, fiery Smorodina River, guarding Kalinov Bridge. This boundary between the world of the living and the dead suspiciously resembles the boiling gates of ancient Tartarus, where the vanquished yet living father of monsters was imprisoned. Just like Typhon, Slavic serpents spew their incinerating flame and possess the terrifying ability to instantly regrow severed heads. Ancient incantations mention secret words capable of binding the fiery maw to save settlements from complete annihilation by this fierce beast. Yellowed pages of old Russian chronicles meticulously preserved the primal, mystical fear of fiery serpents flying across the night sky. Eyewitnesses swore that these demonic creatures stole souls and left behind only scorched, dead earth, saturated with venomous saliva and black ash. Early Christian tradition eagerly absorbed all these disparate pagan images, creating the terrifying, monumental concept of the apocalyptic beast. The great red dragon with 7 heads, described by John the Theologian, is a direct, undistorted reflection of the ancient fear of Typhon's indomitable might. The biblical Leviathan from the Book of Job is strikingly similar to Typhon's chthonic marine aspect. Its scales are described as impenetrable shields, and burning sparks erupt from its mouth. No earthly weapon can pierce this armor, born in the crucible of primordial darkness. Behemoth, on the other hand, embodies the earthly, unyielding power of chaos, absolutely impervious to human weaponry. Its bones are like tubes of bronze, and its limbs like bars of iron. This Old Testament giant holds within it the same crushing, blind rage as Typhon, vanquished by the Greek gods. In medieval grimoires, darkened by time, these disparate chthonic entities often merge into a single, monolithic image of primordial evil. Albertus Magnus's magical treatises directly warn adepts against summoning those demons in whose veins the boiling blood of the father of monsters still flows. The Norse Jörmungandr, the colossal world serpent encircling Midgard with an icy ring, also patiently awaits its hour at the bottom of the dark ocean. Its colossal scaled body conceals the same destructive entropy, ready at any moment to tear apart the established order of the universe. The mighty thunder god Thor desperately battles him during Ragnarok, precisely as Zeus clashed with Typhon at the dawn of time. This eternal confrontation between celestial lightning and the chthonic serpentine mass repeats from age to age. Jörmungandr's deadly, flesh-corroding venom hopelessly poisons the firmament, precisely mimicking the incinerating, ashen breath of the 100-headed Typhon. Ancient skalds sang that from these poisonous fumes stars dim, and the world tree Yggdrasil itself begins to tremble to its deepest roots. The Indian Vritra, a gigantic serpent-like demon of drought, was vanquished in a fierce struggle by the shining Vajra of the god Indra. The Vedas describe him as primordial darkness that swallowed all the waters of the world. And again, we see a celestial weapon cleaving the scales of cosmic chaos for the salvation of all life. All these seemingly disparate myths stubbornly point to a single, tangible source of primeval human fear. Priests from different continents, who never met each other, recorded with terrifying synchronicity in their scrolls the very same colossal serpentine deity. Ancient texts categorically insist on the physical reality of this being, utterly rejecting any attempts to reduce it to psychological metaphors. Grimoires describe not abstract fear, but the specific smell of burning sulfur, acrid ash on the lips, and the trembling of the earth beneath heavy serpentine coils. Sumerian clay tablets, covered in strict cuneiform, describe the anatomy of these cosmic monsters with terrifying, almost surgical precision. The texts of Mesopotamian priests detail the proportions of dragon wings and the structure of venom glands, as if ancient scribes had dissected a slain monster in temple catacombs. Such detailed coincidences in the description of the number of heads, incinerating fiery breath, and deadly venom simply cannot be mere coincidence. No imagination is capable of generating such identical images in the minds of people separated by thousands of miles of impassable oceans and boundless deserts. It is quite possible that in distant prehistoric times, humanity truly encountered a global, living cataclysm of incredible scale, an entity whose gravity fractured tectonic plates and whose venomous blood forever poisoned entire continents, leaving behind only lifeless, scorched wastelands and molten rocks. This unthinkable cataclysm took on monstrous flesh, scales, and a name in the traumatized collective memory of the few survivors who hid in deep caves. They passed on their binding horror to their descendants, carving grotesque silhouettes of the multi-headed serpent onto the cold stone vaults of their subterranean shelters. Grim demonologists of the Renaissance maniacally compiled detailed, branched classifications of such multi-headed entities. They believed that understanding the hierarchy of the underworld would help find vulnerabilities in the armor of those legions that would one day rise from the magmatic depths following their liberated father. The famous occult treatise Pseudomonarchia Daemonum details dark spirits suspiciously resembling Typhon's direct blood-related children. Their attributes are immutable: fiery breath, serpentine tails, and the ability to conjure destructive storms, erasing entire rebellious cities from the face of the earth with a snap of clawed fingers. A deep comparative analysis irrefutably proves that Typhon is a universal mystical code for absolute primordial destruction. This ancient cipher is woven into humanity's very subconscious, like a defense mechanism, warning of an impending collapse of reality when the shackles of the abyss finally crumble. His terrifying, serpentine image is skillfully encrypted in the grim architecture of Europe's Gothic cathedrals in the form of grotesque stone gargoyles. Master stonemasons, members of secret lodges, carved these chimerical faces so that demonic guardians would ward off their invisible progenitor from the sacred walls of the temple. Closed secret societies of the East and West for centuries carefully preserved scattered fragments of a single ancient myth about the great serpent. In their closed libraries, redolent with incense and dust, lie hidden genuine rituals designed to keep the chthonic monster in its magmatic prison for another millennium. In the ancient Persian sacred book Avesta, a terrifying three-headed dragon named Azzi-Dahaka is mentioned, a progeny of pure, absolute evil. Its maws exude deadly venom, and in its eyes blazes an unquenchable flame of destruction, precisely mirroring the magmatic gaze of ancient Typhon. According to Zoroastrian texts, he is also securely chained within the incandescent depths of the sacred Mount Damavand, and is destined to inevitably break free before the very end of the world. Then his venomous breath will burn a third of all living things, marking the beginning of the final battle between the forces of light and darkness. This striking parallel between the fire-breathing volcanoes Etna and Damavand unequivocally confirms the global chthonic nature of the ancient legend. Different peoples, separated by insurmountable mountains, locked their primeval fear within the mouths of volcanoes, instinctively sensing that true evil always lurks in the planet's boiling core. The geography of these colossal monsters' imprisonment in world myths is always inextricably linked with active, perpetually smoking volcanoes, as if the planet itself tries to contain primeval rage within its womb, bleeding incandescent magma through geological wounds inflicted in prehistorical battles. Any fire-breathing volcano in deep antiquity was considered a direct gateway to gloomy Tartarus. From these gaping chasms comes the muffled, vibrating roar of vanquished gods, and poisonous sulfurous fumes were perceived as the genuine, scorching breath of the multi-headed serpent,
whose body thrashes in subterranean chains.
Remarkably, ancient priests from entirely different continents used terrifyingly similar magical rituals to contain this awakening evil. They burned bitter wormwood and cast pieces of black obsidian into boiling lava, chanting secret incantations whose vibrations were meant to lull the monster's vigilance. Concluding our comparative study, we inevitably approach even darker pages of human history. Chapter 3 closes, giving way to an era when ancient myth not only survived, but transformed, drawing us into the grimmest and most uncompromising demonology of the cruel Middle Ages. Chapter 4 traces the terrifying evolution of this primeval fear, from majestic antiquity to modern occult nightmares. The image of the colossal father of all monsters has traversed millennia, changing its names but invariably retaining its destructive essence, imprinted in the most gruesome forbidden texts of our civilization. With the bloody fall of the great Roman Empire, the image of fire-breathing Typhon did not vanish. He merely lay dormant, securely hidden in the dense shadow of cold monastic libraries, where, amidst dusty scrolls and guttering candles, his name continued to evoke sacred awe in the initiated. Medieval monastic scribes, with genuine mystical horror, translated ancient Hesiodic lines recounting the inevitable end of times. Every letter, traced by a trembling hand on parchment, seemed to absorb the venom of serpentine maws, transforming ancient Theogony into a formidable Christian prophecy of impending retribution.
In their richly illuminated manuscripts, the chthonic Typhon definitively and irrevocably transformed into the chief harbinger of Judgment Day. His 100 heads merged into a single terrifying visage of absolute evil, and his sky-piercing wings became a symbol of the encroaching darkness from which no one would escape.
Grim theological treatises on the apocalypse now depict him as a great red dragon, crowned with many horned heads. This god-defying image directly borrows its terrifying anatomy from ancient myths, proving that primordial chaos has merely changed its scenery, awaiting its appointed hour. The biblical dragon furiously sweeps away exactly a third of the shining stars from the night heavens with its colossal tail. This grandiose cosmic destruction terrifyingly echoes the ancient sweep of Typhon's gigantic wings, whose shadow once plunged the entire Olympian pantheon and the very earth into impenetrable gloom. Stern inquisitors obsessively sought any traces of the ancient cult of Typhon among the secret heretical sects of medieval Europe. They sincerely believed that sorcerers used ash from volcanic vents and serpent's blood to conduct dark masses intended to break the chains of the god imprisoned beneath the earth. At the same time, enigmatic alchemists encrypted his formidable name in their intricate engravings. For them, the father of monsters became the true symbol of prima materia, the primal matter. This is that unstable, seething foundation of creation, from which all things are born and to which all things return. In Hermetic alchemy, Typhon embodies wild, utterly raw chaos and the destructive power of black fire. Every true adept was obliged to magically tame this furious energy within their crucible, to transform deadly poison into the philosopher's stone, achieving absolute spiritual enlightenment. The famous engravings of the alchemist Basilius Valentinus vividly depict a colossal serpent mercilessly devouring its own tail amidst roaring alchemical fire. This endless cycle of consumption and rebirth perfectly reflects Typhon's cosmological essence, whose energy never disappears but merely transforms infinitely. When the enlightened Renaissance arrived, prominent demonologists attempted to strictly systematize and classify this untamed primeval horror. They compiled detailed lists of infernal hierarchies,
where echoes of the ancient Greek myth acquired new, even more sinister names and titles in the dark halls of the underworld.
The famous occult grimoire, The Lesser Key of Solomon, describes in minute detail powerful great dukes of hell possessing gruesome dragon heads. These infernal rulers command legions of spirits, and their appearance is always accompanied by unbearable heat and the smell of burning sulfur, betraying their chthonic origin. Many of these higher demons directly inherited recognizable features of Typhon himself. Their hoarse, serpentine voices drive summoners mad, and their incinerating breath can burn through a protective magic circle. They are living fragments of that very primordial chaos that once forced the gods to flee. Later, fearless Victorian occultists conducted extremely dangerous spiritualist seances in London mansions. They used complex geometric seals and rare herbs, desperately attempting to establish a mental connection with the abyss of Tartarus itself, to hear in the darkness the whisper of the millennia-old giant imprisoned there. The famous black magician, Aleister Crowley, maniacally studied ancient Egyptian invocations of Set Typhon. In these forbidden texts, he sought hidden keys to acquiring absolute divine power. Crowley sincerely believed that awakening the energy of this serpent would grant the adept control over the very fabric of reality. In the miraculously preserved secret diaries of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, strict mentions of complex rituals for protection against his all-consuming shadow are still kept. Mages knew even a fleeting touch of Typhon's aura is capable of permanently scorching the human soul, leaving only an empty shell. Over time, the terrifying image of a gigantic, utterly incomprehensible serpent gradually began to permeate grim classical horror literature. Mystic writers, as if guided by an invisible hand from the abyss, unconsciously transferred to paper echoes of the ancient chthonic nightmare imprisoned in the incandescent depths of the earth. The famous creator of cosmic horror, H.P. Lovecraft, in crafting his dark pantheon of elder gods, undoubtedly drew inspiration from ancient texts about Typhon. His monstrous creations, slumbering in darkness, strikingly accurately replicate the anatomy and absolute all-consuming rage of the ancient father of all monsters. The colossal Cthulhu, eternally sleeping on the grim ocean floor in the dead city of R'lyeh, appears as a direct echo of the chthonic monster locked beneath the Sicilian mountain. Both await their hour until the stars align correctly to once again tear apart our fragile reality. The total, clinging madness that Lovecraft's creatures bring into our world is terrifyingly akin to the primeval horror once experienced by the immortal Olympian gods. The human mind is simply incapable of containing the true scale of this multi-headed evil, instantly shattering into fragments from a mere glance. This paralyzing fear of a colossal, unknowable being is deeply ingrained in the very blood of humanity. It is not merely an instinct, but an ancient, generationally transmitted memory of those dark times when the heavens blazed with crimson fire and the earth groaned under the weight of scales. In the 20th century, this primeval, untamed fear finally materialized on the silver screens of cinema. Directors, unknowingly, began to recreate visual imprints of Typhon, forcing millions of viewers to relive again and again the ancient dread before gigantic creatures emerging from the abyss. The colossal monsters of the popular kaiju genre became direct, undeniable heirs to the ancient myth of Typhon, awakened from his long, millennia-long slumber. Their devastating tread and city-shaking roar precisely replicate descriptions from the yellowed pages of forgotten Greek manuscripts and secret grimoires. The legendary Godzilla, risen from dead radioactive ash, is nothing less than a modern embodiment of the ancient father of all monsters. This gigantic reptile carries within it the very same destructive energy of chaos, before which even the almighty creators of Olympus once bowed in terror. Just like ancient Typhon, this modern lizard playfully erases entire megacities from the face of the earth and spews a destructive, incinerating beam from its maw. This flame is a direct legacy of that very primordial fire that alchemists carefully called the tears of dark Tartarus. However, modern pop culture too often forgets the true mystical and deep esoteric essence of this ancient legend. Behind the dazzling special effects lies a real, tangible threat, about which for centuries the initiated priests of Egypt and the stern guardians of secret knowledge in the dark catacombs of the Vatican warned. It is important to understand, Typhon is far from merely a colossal wild beast. He is a sentient, cosmological anti-force, inexorably striving for absolute entropy. His sole purpose is to tear apart the very fabric of creation, erase divine order, and return the entire universe to a state of primordial, seething darkness. In deeply conspiratorial, closed modern esoteric cults, his unpronounceable forbidden name is still uttered only in reverent whispers. Adepts of these secret lodges use blazing sulfur and black obsidian, performing grim rituals in hopes of earning the favor of the father of monsters before the coming end of times. Among these mystics, it is firmly believed that escalating global cataclysms, sudden storms, and fissures in the Earth's crust are sure signs of his imminent, inevitable awakening. Every earthquake is perceived as a dull thud of gigantic serpentine coils against the stone vaults of the subterranean prison, restraining pure chaos. Persistent rumors circulate that the farthest, secret archives of the Vatican hold ancient, dust-covered prophecies about the impending fall of Mount Etna. In these scrolls, written in the blood of the first martyrs, it is stated that one day the basalt plug will not hold, and the volcano will forever collapse into the boiling abyss. In that fateful hour, when the colossal stone mass collapses, the invisible magical chains of Tartarus will finally weaken, and then our heavens will split again with a deafening, multi-voiced roar, and the sun will forever dim behind gigantic leathery wings, bringing death to all life on the planet. Modern psychologists vainly attempt to explain this great myth as the banal, primitive fear of ancient peoples before the elemental forces of nature. They reduce everything to metaphors of hurricanes and eruptions, cowardly closing their eyes to facts that do not fit into their cozy, safe worldview. But we resolutely reject any pathetic rationalization. In ancient Sumerian tablets and Greek treatises, too many terrifying, utterly inexplicable coincidences lie hidden. These texts are not fairy tales, but strict documentary testimonies of survivors who witnessed firsthand what defies human comprehension. The testimonies of ancient chroniclers describe Typhon's complex physiology with terrifying, almost medical meticulousness. They detail the structure of his venom glands, the temperature of his incinerating breath, and the strength of his scales, as if before them lay not a poetic image, but a real living organism dissected on an altar. Even the great mystic Gustave Doré, in his famous darkness-infused black engravings, could capture only the smallest fraction of this epic, unearthly horror. The artist seemed to peer beyond the permissible, attempting to immortalize the likeness of one whose true form instantly and forever deprives one of sanity. His heavy, grim ink strokes brilliantly convey the unbearable, crushing weight of colossal serpentine coils piercing the very stratosphere. Gazing at these paintings,
the viewer physically feels that primeval dread that forced the great gods to abandon their shining halls and flee to the hot sands.
The crimson lightning in his paintings are but faint echoes of that grandiose cosmic battle, which in truth is not yet over. The flashes frozen in ink conceal a living, pulsating flame that still smolders in the deepest, unreachable depths of our planet. Modern orbital satellites periodically detect strange, utterly inexplicable thermal anomalies deep beneath Sicily. Infrared cameras capture colossal pockets of heat that pulsate with a terrifying, almost biological rhythm, as if there, in the darkness, a gigantic, basalt-encased hot heart beats. Seismologists naively attribute these terrifying rhythms to the mundane movement of magma, but ancient priests knew the true truth. In closed manuscripts, it is stated in black and white, this is the heavy breathing of the imprisoned god, whose fiery core still yearns to devour the firmament. The evolution of fear has led us to the dangerous illusion that we are safely hidden behind glowing monitor screens and concrete walls. We have forgotten that primordial chaos cannot be destroyed. It can only be temporarily bound until humanity loses its vigilance. We arrogantly believe that ancient myths are merely naive campfire stories, until the solid earth suddenly begins to tremble beneath our feet. In these brief moments, primeval terror paralyzes our minds, reminding us who the true master of the depths is. The terrifying image of the 100-headed fiery serpent continues to live its secret life in the deep collective unconscious of all humanity. It penetrates our darkest nightmares, forcing us to wake in a cold sweat when we imagine a heavy, hissing breath from beneath the earth. He waits patiently in the darkness for humanity to finally forget the ancient protective spells and sacred guardian seals. When obsidian amulets turn to dust and words from old grimoires fade from memory, his 100 maws will once again spew forth deadly venom. Ancient grimoires strictly and unyieldingly warn, what was securely bound by the powerful magic of ancestors can easily be freed by our modern ignorance. The rejection of belief in chthonic monsters is precisely the key that slowly unlocks the gates of the abyss. Every forgotten legend, every ridiculed myth makes the invisible chains of Tartarus a little weaker with each passing century. We ourselves, with our rational arrogance, erase the sacred runes that for millennia held back the father of all monsters in his incandescent subterranean prison. Typhon survived the bloody fall of Rome, endured the grim Dark Ages, and will undoubtedly easily outlast our fragile, self-assured era. His time flows differently. For a being born before the dawn of time, millennia of imprisonment seem but a short, restless sleep. He forever remains an absolute constant of all-consuming chaos in the fragile equation of our ordered universe. As long as stars move in their strict orbits and the sun rises in the east, Typhon will accumulate his rage, striving to tear apart this divine mathematical order. A deep study of his evolution proves that the mystical, paralyzing fear of him never completely faded. He merely changed his guise, hiding behind strict scientific terms, but continuing to poison our minds with the premonition of an imminent, global, and devastating catastrophe. We have simply learned to call this ancient, primeval horror by other, more convenient and comforting names. But a change of names does not alter the essence. The gigantic serpent is still there, in the boiling magma, and its 100-headed roar merely awaits its hour. This conclusion of the 4th chapter leaves us on the threshold of the grimmest, most soul-chilling and terrifying conclusions. We stand on a thin crust of cooled earth, beneath which rages an ocean of primordial wrath, ready at any moment to engulf our entire fragile civilization. Our grim epilogue mercilessly brings us back to the present day, to final, heavy reflections on the threat hidden in the depths. Casting aside dusty folios, we must look reality in the eye and admit that ancient evil has not vanished from this world. Today, the majestic Sicilian volcano, Etna, continues to peacefully smoke against the backdrop of a serene, crystal-clear blue sky. Its slopes are covered in greenery, and vineyards conceal those very black, molten stones that once bore witness to the fall of the greatest of all known monsters. Carefree tourists take hundreds of joyful photos every day, unaware of who exactly sleeps beneath their feet. They laugh and drink wine directly above the gates to Tartarus, oblivious to the heavy, incinerating gaze from the utter darkness. But sometimes, in the dead of night, a low, terrifyingly vibrating hum erupts from the dark crater. This sound is not registered by seismographs, but it makes stray dogs howl frantically, and birds abandon their nests on the mountain slopes in a panic. In such gruesome moments, old Sicilians silently, with pale faces, close their heavy wooden shutters tighter. They frantically perform ancient protective signs, passed down through generations, knowing precisely whose breath has just touched their sleeping villages. The illusion of our safety rests solely on the temporary, deceptive strength of ancient, long-cooled, solid rock formations. But these stones are not eternal, and one day the seal will be broken, unleashing the very primeval horror that once forced the gods to flee. This soul-chilling myth is far from dead. It merely lurks in the absolute darkness of Tartarus, slowly gathering strength through long millennia. Ancient grimoires state that every war on earth only feeds its black heart. Typhon patiently awaits his hour. Someday, the great gods will again have to flee in animalistic terror, desperately escaping the awakened primeval wrath of the father of all monsters, and no Egyptian sands will hide them from the flames any longer. Protective seals will crumble into black dust before the face of absolute entropy. And on that inevitable doomsday, the heavens will split a second time. Crimson lightning will once again pierce the stratosphere, and gigantic serpentine coils will close around the throat of our world. And then all life will forever plunge into the cold, primeval chaos from which we once emerged.